This is Hunt Nebraska, the official podcast for insight into Nebraska's hunting and shooting sports community. Be sure to give us a follow on Facebook, our space for sharing stories, information, tips, and techniques. Now, Hunt Nebraska. Boom, just like that, we are back in the Hunt Nebraska cabin. Thanks for inviting us into your vehicle, your office, your home, wherever you might be listening. We definitely appreciate that. Going around the room real quick, we've got the Jeff Rollinson. We got our good friend from the National Wild Turkey Federation, Michael, over here, me, Hershy, and then you've seen his face here before. If you're watching us on YouTube, you'll maybe recognize the voice if you just listen to the audio podcast of this as well. But we've got our own big game program manager, Luke Meduna, in the cabin today. How you doing, Luke?
Good, I'm doing great.
Thanks for being here, Luke. I know we've got a lot of ground to cover. A lot of folks probably want to hear what our big game program manager has to say as we have kicked off the archery deer season. Got started, what's now the traditional season, September 1st?
Yeah. How's that going? Any
fairly good. Yeah. I've seen what I've seen on social media and all that. Yeah. I mean, people are killing deer, so it's progressing right along.
The neat thing about it is, for those that really do their homework, deer are a little bit more patternable early on the season, especially those bucks because they're hanging out together. They're kind of their antlers are coming out of the growth period, right? Yep. They might start shedding that velvet that's on it here real soon.
Yep, that's going on right now.
But it's one of those things too, is that they're still in that mindset of not bumping those antlers into anything.
Yeah, and eating food.
And so if you're really in the thick stuff right now, you're probably, especially if it's a lot of brush, river, ground, bottom, probably not seeing a lot of bucks because they're not in there.
Yeah.
So that changes.
That's a real good point to make, though, Hershy, because a lot of guys and gals, they want to set up on those same travel corridors. They always do when they see deer in November or even late October. Yeah, and not necessarily this time of year. It's a good point. No. Not necessarily this time of year are they back in the tall and uncut because they are very protective of those antlers right now.
Yeah. Now, that'll change here real quick as they start spreading out and the crops coming out. Are you guys seeing crop fields coming out?
A lot of silage came out. Saw that.
I've seen some combines rolling. I assume some of that's headed in the corn, maybe heading to an ethanol plant where they're able to take it a little bit wetter. Yeah. Seen a few bean fields being combined through, which is just always one of those, wow, is it really time?
Yeah. I think the prediction is within the next 10 to 14 days, you're going to see a lot of corn coming out of the fields. Very early.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen a few fields come out, and whether it's been silage or what. But man, the drought we had here in eastern Nebraska has really dried the corn out. There's a lot of that stuff that's been pretty dry already. So
that is the truth, which is kind of exciting. Now there's plenty of green in some of those crop fields as well, Michael. So those will be a little while.
We drove by a few of those last Friday.
Going some, yep. That's right. Well, that's right. We went down to the Horning State Farm to help out with the Nebraska Forest Service Forest Festival, and we had a little 3D archery range going on there. We saw some combines rolling. Saw some fields already out. We saw some beans, I think, coming out, but a lot.
Beans. One cornfield coming out.
And then we saw some really green fields, which is interesting. But at least pointing in the right direction, because I know a lot of deer hunters get excited when that temporary jungle that we have in the summer kind of disappears. Yeah. I'm one of them.
Yeah, it takes a lot of cover off the landscape.
My mood is directly related to the color of corn. Yeah. It has been all my life.
The color of corn. I think you got a new title for your memoir.
I think so. The color of corn. Green corn, my mood is not great, especially short green corn. My mood's not great. Tall green corn, my mood's a little better. Tasseled green corn, my mood's starting to really, really improve. Now you start getting brown fleckings on those leaves, a little happier camper. I'm skipping to work, singing a little song. Brown corn, I sometimes have tears in my eyes. Can't hold back. I'm so happy. And when that brown corn's gone, best mood ever.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have to remember that. That's recorded for all of posterity, because next time in a meeting we disagree with it, we're going to, green.
It's a green corn must be
green again.
Hold up the green corn cob.
Don't disagree with me.
Stay away from him. He's going through a color phase right now.
He needs coffee? No, he needs the corn to turn brown. That's what he needs. What? But it's true. It's so. My wife will tell you. Yeah, and yellow beans. Oh, happy days.
So one of the things you probably get hit, and this is probably a common question, so you've got probably a good, quick answer to it, and I don't expect anything more. What's the outlook going into the hunting seasons? Archery's open. We've got October private land, antlerless only season will happen. October 1st? Is that?
Yeah, 1st to the 15th, I think.
1st through the 15th. November's a time, and the end of October when the rut starts, a lot of deer hunters get excited about. And you got muzzleloaders that are waiting in the wings as well. But everyone wants to know, how's our deer herd doing? What's the hunting going to be like? What's it going to be compared to last year?
I would say we're probably going to be fairly similar to where we were last year. I mean, last year was a tough year.
Winter was tough.
Winter was tough, but our season, our mule deer buck harvest was the lowest since like 1981. The whitetail buck harvest lowest since like 1994. Success rates on those buck permits were, at historical lows too, and that's why we had a lot of cuts for this year and a lot of restrictions and some changes. So, I mean, we're following up on a tough year, so hopefully it's better. But I'm not going to oversell it for sure. I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to get out there and hunt, and and there's definitely deer out there. Don't take me wrong. It's not like there's no deer left. It's just going to be a little tougher. It's not, you're not going to stumble, dumb luck.
We're still up in this part of the graph. We're not down here in this part of the graph. So keep it all in perspective. But specifically the Pine Ridge unit, I need to know how we think that's going to do. How are hunters going to do on the Pine Ridge unit this year?
Even out there, I think fairly decent. I mean, we still got decent numbers of whitetails out there, despite the fact we've been trying to completely pound them for the benefit of mule deer. Whitetail numbers are good. Mule deer numbers aren't terrible. They're decent out there. They're not as bad as they've been, but they're not as good as they could be. So
a couple landowners that I've talked to said they're seeing good numbers. So I mean, it's kind of spotty, I suppose, wherever you're at, but it gives me hope, gives me excitement.
Yeah, for sure.
There you go. And I know that, again, like I said, that probably get asked that question quite a bit. I do have a prediction. We did a prediction show going into our seasons, and I'm hoping we keep track of this a little bit. I'm not a trophy hunter. I'm probably more along the lines of the average deer hunter when it comes to that. Love to dream about big antlers and big deer and all that type of stuff, but just as happy with what passes by. But one of the predictions I made was our whitetail buck harvest age was going to go up slightly. So we're going to see. You're going to have to back me up at the end of the season.
Okay.
And you don't need to do it with numbers or logic or anything like that. Just as long as I get a guess.
I seem to recall that I went the opposite direction, so one of us is going to be right.
Well,
here.
Luke, what do you think? Is it going to go up or down?
Based upon the last 8 years, it's going to be exactly the same as it was last year.
You're not basing it on Hershey's interpretation?
I win, yeah.
No,
you set up.
our whitetail age structure has been remarkably very... It's evened off. It's from the historic, from the historic where 70% of our whitetail harvest whitetail buck harvest was yearling bucks. It's completely reversed, and it's been about 20% have been yearlings and about 40% have been 3-year-olds for about the past 6 years.
So if our deer herd's down, we maintain the same harvest age structure. That's a win, right? I mean, if you play fewer football games and you win the same number,
only in Iowa
then you're good.
Public schools do they teach math where if there's no change, that's an increase.
Yeah. Like I say, if you win 12 games but you play 20 to get there compared to 15, I mean that's
remedial math. Maybe you go back to remedial.
So anyway,
math.
Thank you for backing me up on that. Yeah. Okay, I appreciate it.
So if it goes from 40 to 41, do you win?
Remedial math. Andy's a dreamer.
Actually,
if
it goes from 40 to 40, he wins. If it's 49 to 30, then or 40 to 39,
I was going to say
then I win.
I win too if you just take that decimal spot just a little further, or take it another digit past the decimal spot.
If you get a chance to work with him every day, you realize in his mind he's always won. He's always winning.
You know what? I swear I've had Hershey tell me he's not very competitive before, but I don't see it.
Let me explain to you what is not the truth. Let me explain to you what is not.
I don't know how competitive you got to be when you win. So
he's not competitive. He just hates to lose.
Yeah. He's one of those people that hates losing.
Not lose.
He hates losing more than he likes winning. I can tell you that right now.
If I see myself even getting close to getting behind, I just quit. So I have not. I'm undefeated.
Like I said, he hates losing more than he likes winning.
That is a line from The Office, folks. If you haven't checked that out, it's a summary anyway. All right. So deer hunting survey. You've got the bow hunters out there sitting in the stand. Some of them we know, some of them we probably all think of it. I know listeners are going to have a mind that popped right up in their mind of someone that went out on those 90-degree days when the season first started, or sat when it was 100, just because they're deer hunters and deer season was open. Tell us a little bit about this deer hunter survey you got going on.
Yeah, this is the 4th year we've run it. I completely stole the idea from Iowa. Where they send out cards to their deer hunters, their bow hunters in particular, about 9,000 of them that they use, I believe. But they just record their sits. They just record the deer that they count or that they see, and they actually record a whole number of things, badgers and turkeys and all that, and they get a capture per unit effort, how many deer did you see per hour sitting type of number for a total deer. What we do a little differently is we actually ask our hunters to classify the deer as bucks, does, and fawns, so we can get those sex and age ratios to utilize for our management, and just kind of keeping get a snapshot of what our deer herd makeup is. I have shared that out on social media for participation. We do need to get it. I'm working on getting an email out to our permit holders and our past archers. So this is probably news to some of our viewers and listeners here. But if you want to find it, just go to our main webpage, hit the search bar, and just type in Bowhunter Survey. It'll take you to a page, and then there's a link there that takes you to the survey, and you basically just fill the survey out for every sit. One for the morning, one for the evening if you're hunting twice in a day, and record. Basically, I ask to get your email, so I typically try to send out a thank you email at the end of it all. But then as your ID, but then you're just recording the county and what you saw that day and how many hours you sat, so we can still get that deer per hour. But we're right now we're not getting the sample size to really get a population trend off of that side. But at some point, if we can get more participation, that'd be great. We've been having 200 to 300 hunters participate across the state. I think of course it's mostly been whitetails. The only unit we don't get anything in is in the plains, which there's not many people sitting in a tree stand in the plains unit.
Well, the problem is the tree stand keeps falling over.
Yeah. Well, you can't.
In the sand hills.
You really can't put a tree stand on a yucca. Yeah. So the plains unit's a tough one, but everything else, has got river systems and a good number of archers that participate. In the past, we've done both turkeys and mule deer, but the sample size has been low enough that it's not worth our effort. We're just going to focus on whitetails at this point, and we get numbers for turkeys with a rural mail carrier survey. We get thousands of entries there. On the mule deer side, we have a staff survey in December and January where we do buck doe fawn counts. So we get that data there, and so we're not going to worry about the bow hunters on that side. So just focusing on whitetails at this point.
So how would this survey correlate with previous metrics that we've used?
We really haven't used a whole lot. This is just in part to help us, get information on, if we had a good year of production or a bad year, on our fawn numbers, or what our buck to doe ratio is, if that's varying wildly or any of that. And really, that's the buck to doe ratio. The last 3 years that we've done it has stayed really quite remarkably level on the whitetail side, where it's been 40 to 44. Bucks per 100 does. So, your buck to doe ratio there is it's between, 1 buck for every 2 to 2.5 does. So, right there, right where you'd expect it in a hunted population. So yeah.
That is interesting. And then they're also, like you said, able to track doe and how many fawns with them, right, or how many young. And is there anything, we always think about, it must be a good year. There's twins or triplets, or, it must not be good because she's only got one.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's that's varied a little bit, 0.6 to 0.7 fawns per doe, which is, it is probably lower than what it was in the 2000s when we had deer coming out of our ears, but it's about what we'd expect. It's lower than what some places see, but it's also higher than what a lot of the eastern states have. So it's
a tough place to survive.
Yeah,
this really is. Nebraska is a tough place to survive.
Well, and it's right in that window of what we'd expect. It's not bad. It's not It's not great, but it's not.
It regulates itself just a little bit. I'm sure based on habitat and health of the habitat at times. I mean, like you said, we've been in a pretty big drought. You usually think of that in western Nebraska, and some of those spots, we were closing down roads to wildlife management areas and state parks and rec areas because of too much water and even snow last year. So
yeah, well, and even with the drought, you get that when there's no cover left on the landscape because of drought and all that. You end up with there's just less place for those fawns to hide, and so they're easier for coyotes and predators to get a hold of. And it just puts more stress on the doe and less nutrition and all that. So you're going to have.
You mentioned a few hundred bow hunters filling this out now. And what is the number where you're able to start really making some inferences off some of this data? What are we talking about? Need 1,000? Need 2,000?
Last year we had about 1,000 recorded hunts on it. So our numbers at a statewide level are really good. We don't need a huge number. They classified somewhere over 5,000 total deer.
Oh, wow.
For us, which is, you start, having 200 participants doesn't seem like a whole lot when we've got, 15,000 bow hunters in the state. But when, the number of deer that they classified, it starts getting us some pretty decent data, the sample sizes we need. I like to see, on a unit level, at least 50 or 100 does classified. And then that starts getting us high enough.
Okay.
I mean, that's statistically kind of in that realm of significant sample.
Can we get there if we doubled the number of bow hunters taking part in this survey, you think?
Oh yeah, the more we can get, the better. There's a handful of units where we only had 2 or 3 reports in it. So
there you go.
The eastern part of the state around Lincoln and Omaha, Wahoo. Blue Northwest, those units get a lot
of coverage.
But more the merrier. So every other unit, if you want to participate, please hop in.
There you go, Nebraska archers. If you're listening, make sure you check that out. The Bowhunter Survey. You can find it online. It doesn't take a lot. It's not like you have to do it right there. You can make notes and then report it when you get back. I know you've got ability to do it on your phone.
Staring at Facebook while we're bow hunting anyway. So
I was gonna say,
so all I do is when you're climbing down, you just click, and you're done.
By.
Yeah,
let's scroll through right quick.
Before you climb down.
Yeah, isn't that probably the one thing that we see, especially nowadays with newer hunters, is they watch those YouTube videos, they see those TV shows and things like that. Deer hunting, especially archery hunting, but regardless of the method, deer hunting, a lot of waiting, a lot of just, I know I'm in the right spot. You got to convince yourself. You got to have things that pass, your time, whether that's snacks. I know some guys that do crossword puzzles, read books. The phone's kind of a handy go-to thing now. You can play Angry Birds or do word puzzles or whatever you want to do. What is your go-to game now? You said you've got your phone with you.
Oh, not much for games on my phone. Like I said, scrolling Facebook or checking email.
That's dangerous. Jeff, I know you're reading history. You got probably books written down.
History. I'm an email, and that's the problem. I'll sit there and do an email, and then of course I'm like, this isn't what hunting is about. I'm not supposed to be doing email. This is not fun.
This thing has actually sat in a tree with me. So
guilty. Ground blind, but guilty.
No, I like it legitimately.
Or duck blind.
20 feet up.
Oh, jeez.
I see something we're going to have our hunter head coordinator, Hunter Nikolai, kind of address how to get your laptop safely to the top of your tree stand now.
Back down to the ground. Got to pull up the whole pack.
What's your game, Michael?
I'm just scrolling through Facebook or looking. I also like to look at OnX a lot if I'm sitting there in my spot and just kind of looking at stuff around me on OnX.
Oh, there you go. Used to have a fun trivia game that you were playing against somebody else. So you go head to head on different topics, but you had to have unfortunately cell service to make that work. So, that is interesting. That's kind of neat. And hopefully, like you said, it gives us a little bit more insight on what's going on, because you're the big game program manager. How many biologists do you have working underneath you doing just exactly what you need them to do?
0.
Really. 0.
we do have one big game biologist in our program that kind of splits.
Really?
Between Scott Fesmer.
Scott.
Replace Kylie Sinclair.
Huh.
Real tall guy.
Well, he's actually new. He's started he's a couple months, maybe 3 months in, but
you haven't brought him around to meet us yet?
He's at Bridgeport, so.
You still haven't taken us out to Bridgeport to introduce us yet?
That's an interesting response. Real tall guy. Well, he's actually new.
Yeah.
Are we going to hire a lot of short guys lately?
No,
is that the new batch?
Haven't worn them down yet, Jeff.
You've been here a while.
I was 6'4" when I started. That gives you an idea. It's a rough place to survive. Nebraska. It's a rough state.
Losing does and height.
Yeah. You give up your basketball career when you come work for here, by golly. That's all I can say. No, but moving forward, okay. Now we kind of have an idea of what we've seen for deer in Nebraska, and we have an idea of what we're going to see this year. What do you predict is going to happen over the next 5 years with our deer herd?
I honestly don't
crystal
know.
Ball.
Like crystal ball.
If you're a betting man,
I would suspect that we're probably going to be on an upswing, because with the drought and everything that's happened with the conservative nature of our permits, the way we're addressing some of the doe permits, I think we'll see a swing back. I think we can't help but swing back up because, it was 5 years ago, not even 5 years ago, and we're having a bunch of depredation issues. We jacked permit numbers up, deer numbers have come down. EHD, in a large part of the state helped with that again. So we'll adjust permits, deer numbers will come back. So it'll, if this year's down, it'll get better. So
and the drought's got to break.
Yeah, we're going to get rain
sooner or
at
later.
some point.
Well,
we'll be complaining about water.
It has. I mean, you look at places like central Nebraska. That last several years been really, really dry, and all of a sudden this year they started getting quite a bit of the rains. Still in the drought stage, but in some areas the potholes are full of water again in some spots. It's kind of cool to watch.
Yeah, well, and like western Nebraska stayed green all summer. Yeah. Usually you get to July 1 and it just turns brown and you're done. And but man, this year with all the snow, careful what you wish for, but their drought broke with about 8 feet of snow.
Oh gosh, they were digging for days.
But they've continued to get rain all summer, and so they've largely come out of that drought that they've been in for the last couple of years. And
I've got a particular alfalfa field in the Pine Ridge that I've been monitoring. I monitor every year, and it's looking good this year.
Yeah,
I'm pretty excited about that. So
now, what's interesting, we've talked antler growth. We had that one really neat study, the culling study. I think that was in Texas with that controlled herd. Yep. But something that is just popped in my mind is, if I remember correctly, that buck fawns born when mom's health isn't the greatest usually don't grow very big antlers, if I remember correctly, just because of that gestation period and the struggle and the health. So I'm wondering if this drought's going to have an impact on
it. Very well could.
Born this summer.
It very well could. I may have mentioned it, in that last podcast, but we saw that, in those fawns born in 2012 during that massive drought in 2012, that those deer, never grew to what they, what the deer a year. Born a year later.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I mean, it just all to do with nutrition and
early on. It just kind of sets their course.
I just like how Hershy just gave sportsmen and women all across the state for at least the next year or two an excuse. When they shoot a deer, those aren't very big animals. Well, with the drought and all, it would have been about 160 class, but it's only about 110 given dry conditions.
Keep in mind,
that was good, Hershy.
Keep in mind who made the prediction that our age of our whitetail bucks is going to go up slightly this year.
And it's not.
That was right.
And age size made
proven it's going to stay the same.
Yep, age, exactly.
Is the age going to stay the same, you think?
The real trophy is the age.
Is it going to stay the same? Go up? Going to stay the same? Okay, moving on to the next hypothesis. Why don't you talk about deer numbers over the next 5 years? You might nail that one.
Yeah.
We edit him out quite a bit.
They do. It's like I'm not even here.
We just need to, like I said, all we got to do is count another zero at the end of it. And it counts. But no, I find that interesting. It's one of those things that genetics always kind of, they're there, but there's all sorts of these environmental influences out there that have an impact. Now, like you said, if they came through that winter that we had out in the western Nebraska pretty well, a lot of green spots, a lot of spots that were in drought that now have reversed that. And those maybe mule deer does were in great shape. And maybe we'll reap some of those benefits moving down through the next few years. So
wouldn't bother me.
Just all science. That's what's always interesting. So
nature's funny.
So have you been out yet then?
No, I haven't.
Me neither.
I've been shooting my bow, been getting ready, but it's been it's been a tough start to the year. Well, it was so hot the first week of the month that there was no chance that I was going to go.
I mean, you can get a thermocell, right, to keep the mosquitoes away. But it's hard to dodge 100 degrees.
Sitting right next to you, they just don't.
Yeah. It's the portable generator that really, I think, screws them up.
That's right. Ozone destroys human scent, but Freon probably gives its own smell, huh?
Yeah.
Now, have you guys ever used one of those ozone destroying doohickeys. Those
ozone machines.
Yeah. No. Any thought about those? Anybody
from everything I've seen on it, because ozone is used industrially for removal of scent. I'm sure it works.
Yeah.
The argument is how does wind play into that and dispersal of ozone? But I'm sure that ozone has some impact on scent, elimination, because it's used industrially
I don't know. It kind of begs the question: are the industrial uses? Are they making use of this something that we can get up a tree stand and attach to, or is it?
Yeah, that's the question.
So, and how long does it last and all that? It's just one of those things that I've come to the conclusion. Used to go bow hunting with my bow and arrow. I mean, that was it. And then you kind of had a fanny pack, or you had cargo pants or something like that. You could stuff some snacks in, maybe a grunt tube or something. Now I got a backpack. It's already full of all the stuff I might need in a hunt. From beginning of season to end of season, I'm sure there's still some Halloween candy from last year's endeavors, that type of stuff. I don't know if I have room for a whole bunch more. I don't like taking two trips back and forth from the truck to the tree stand just for a hunt.
Bigger backpack, Hershey. Bigger backpack. Next step.
I don't know.
It went from a fanny pack to a shoulder pack to an onslaught, full all out, 5 days up in the glacier backpack. That's kind of what you'll be taking.
If I went to the chiropractor, he'd probably say no for the slight build that you have. That's probably not doing me any good.
Having an impact. Again, 6'4". When I started this thing. I can tell you it probably had an impact.
Yeah, well, and I'm guilty of way too big of a backpack. The pack that I use, and it's largely because it functions really well.
The Glacier Bay,
everything. Yeah. I've got it's a 2,900 cubic inch backpack that I use, but it collapses down.
Whoa, mine's not.
He's planning to pack something out. See, that's the thing. He's going to stuff the whole thing in that
that's
backpack.
Just the backpack I've used. It, it's for some backcountry day hunt. It doesn't work on you can multi-day out of it if you.
I know those guys that goes out into the mountains with your dad packing for 5, 6 days, 10 days.
Mine's not.
I can fit all my clothes in there.
If I'm 4 hours from the truck, I get nervous.
Yeah.
To be honest with you.
I'm going to say my backpack.
40 yards.
You lean it up against the tree, it's not halfway there. So, yeah, that's quite the backpack you're getting. Well, you might fit that air conditioner and the ozone.
It's what it is. It's an Everly stock gunslinger, so it's got that scabbard right behind there. Yeah. You can put anything like snacks and anything that's you need to get to. That's perfect for being strapped to the tree, and you can just reach in there. Binoculars sit right there. It's been a great backpack, and then it's got straps on it that collapse it all the way down, so it's not a huge bag sitting there on the.
Does it ever collapse all the way down?
Oh yeah.
Do you ever have?
Oh yeah. There's a lot of time it's it's way too floppy for what I need, but it just.
Luke, I forgot my chair. Luke's digging it. I got a chair for you. You have a tree stand in there. Oh gosh, yeah.
I think you could probably just climb to the top of that bag and you'd be elevated enough for a safety harness.
Yeah. When do you exceed the weight capacity of the tree stand? Is what I'm concerned about. You have that much gear in that bag. I think
I don't have to worry too much about that.
Yeah, some do. So anyway, moving on.
Oh, no,
that's mighty fine of you there, Luke. Anyway.
Sorry.
To be fair, you brought the point up first, Jeff.
I don't worry too much about that. Well, thanks, Luke. Anyway, any other questions for our esteemed gentleman here?
Now, just
I'm showing the door.
Out the door, Skinny.
I don't know. You beat us into the hunt cabin today by 10 minutes, so this is probably your show.
Yeah.
Now, talking about surveys, that one thing I do want to brush on real quick, that is, you just wrapped up something kind of similar with the turkey brood survey, right?
Right.
Month of July and August. Now, it's not just for bow hunters. That's for anybody out there that might be around where turkeys are during that time.
Yeah. In that survey, we historically, we had always kind of done a turkey brood survey in August with just staff. Staff had a few routes that they'd go drive and count the birds that they saw. We kind of went away from that just with staff time and all that. But the National Wild Turkey Technical Committee, a lot of states collect turkey brood data, but it's all collected differently and different times of the year, different methods. They look at it differently. The NWTF Tech Committee, which is made up of biologists from every state like myself, they all work together. It started in the Southeast, but they wanted to have a way to look at the data so it was all done in a similar fashion. So they came up with a protocol to do it. They came out with that right when I started, and so I thought, we haven't been doing this survey a while. This is data that we would love to have, and so I was like, we're going to start doing this. We did it with staff the first year in 2019, and then after that have asked the public to participate in that with us. And it's just through July and August, you're reporting and recording every group of turkeys that you see, or all turkeys. They don't even have to be a group. You can write them in one at a time. But you're counting the hens, the poults, and the males. Toms and Jakes are lumped together in that. And then you're just recording what county you're in and whether or not you've reported them before. So we don't really report duplicates in the system. So that's the way we filter it. But we want you to keep reporting them. So it's that we've asked the public to participate in that and have had great participation. So this is our 23. So it'd be our fifth year that we've done this in the modern era. Here in the last few years, so we're getting good data. We're actually classifying this year. The numbers of reports and that we're sending in were lower than what last year we classified, or we had there's over 11,000 turkeys classified and sent in. When all the filtering was done, it was about 9,000. Total turkeys. This year we're right at about 5,000. So we're down on the number of reports. The number of reports was down, 30%. So some of that, and the number of participants was about 2/3 of what it was in years past. So some of that is just a matter of getting the word out and reminding people to participate, and staff included. So there's some of that where we just need to stay on top of it. As for the results, I worked really hard to run it through some R script that I had, so it was. I think it's done right, so we'll see because we actually also we actually also work as a group with the tech committee. We'll send our data in, and they'll send us a report back to make sure it's been analyzed correctly. I've got access to the R script, so I tried to make it work. So hopefully it's right, but it looks like our poults per hen is down a little bit. It's about 2.2, where last year was about 2.8. And then the brood size was like 3.8 versus about 4.1. So, with the drought
similar
and all
but
that,
down, yeah.
It's similar but down. But the general goal or the target for recruitment is to have at least 2 poults per hen on the landscape.
So we're still good.
We're still pretty good. It's not like it was terrible. There's a lot.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So
very well. Again, still the good old days, right? I always tell people that with a bit of caution on turkeys, because you're looking at somebody who traditionally, when I started turkey hunting, you had to go up in Niobrara.
There's only a few places you could go.
Correct. And today, 15 minutes from the house, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you go, oh, geez, I didn't see very many turkeys today. You're upset. We're 15 minutes from Lincoln, Nebraska, and you're upset maybe you don't see enough turkeys. And so it's all perspective, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of cool to know that our recruitment's still where it needs to be for growth.
Yeah. Yeah, and
maintenance.
And it'll be interesting to see what like with when we start putting that information together with our turkey research project to develop population models and tell us where we're going. So, I don't know that I'd go so far as calling it the good old days. It's but
30 years ago.
Well, when we hit the peak of the peak, that was the perfect storm on a lot of different areas, a lot of different fronts, and some of those well outside anybody's control.
For sure.
And so it's just kind of interesting. But we always measure, especially in our outdoor endeavors, we always measure from the highest water mark
that we can possibly remember.
Yeah. Being a bird hunter, we always talk about the days when you shot your limit, and that's all what we compare it to. One time I did it in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
How long is it going to take today? Deer, turkey, same thing. I went out there and saw 300 deer in this one spot one night. Well, that sounds great to a hunter, but maybe to the farmer, not so much. Not. But at the same token, it's that's where we're going to measure it from. All right, I've seen this, which is fine. That's what makes memories, right? Yep. That's what brings us out. The chance at the big one, seeing the most, whatever, getting the opportunity that we're looking for. But there's a lot that goes into it that we have some input on, and things we have no input on at all, including the weather and all that. We haven't figured out how to make this state we call Nebraska climate controlled yet to our liking.
I'm working on it.
But please do. Now that we know you've got another deer biologist out there, we expect it to go faster. But that's just part of the fun. But no one said hunting is supposed to be easy.
Yeah.
No. And again, called hunting, not shooting, right?
Yeah.
So,
and every state goes through ups and downs. In the turkey realm, we've actually fared better than about everybody else. A lot of other states are down. our overall harvest, is down, about half of what our peak was. There's some states that are down 80%. And so it's like what other states are seeing. Like we should be happy with where we're at.
Yeah.
And getting same thing. I mean, we're right where east meets west. You work with a lot of big game biologists west of here in Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, all those states, just like we do in the work that we are charged with. And they always kind of politely remind you that don't complain. You guys get a deer tag every year. You don't. You just go to your computers and print one out and then go hunting. And here we might, if I want to hunt a spot, I might have. I might have public ground near the house, but I might get hunted every other year, or every third year, or in some spots even longer.
We all have friends, different fish and wildlife agencies across the country, but you go down southwest, like state like Arizona, for example, great state, some incredible hunting, but not near the access to deer and deer numbers like we have here in Nebraska. And you talk to staff there, and they might get a permit every 5 years or something along those lines. You're thinking, man, I couldn't do that.
Don't you remember the great Mr. Barrett that we started a radio show with? There at KFOR in Lincoln, which is now on Thursday night, 6 p.m. But we did that on Saturday. He lived in Arizona. And we talked about that once, and he said, guys, you do realize that's not just for non-residents. That's everybody. That's for residents. That's for everybody.
Well, I remember.
I hunt and love to deer hunt, but I probably dove hunt 2 or 3 times more often than I deer hunt down there because
I remember taking him turkey hunting one year, and he was just elated because in Arizona you'd have to wait years and to get when he hunted there to get a tag. And I'm thinking like deer, for example, once every 3 or 4 or 5 years. I'm thinking to myself, in here in Nebraska, we can shoot 3 or 4 or 5 deer in a year. I mean, so would you even, if you could only shoot 1 deer every 5 years, you start doing the math on where you're at in the age and whatnot. You probably wouldn't need more than 1 rifle. I mean, you wouldn't go out and buy all these extra deer pistols and deer guns because, you're not going to get
Now, for those folks listening in that situation, no, you still need to buy some to help support conservation. Podcasts like this one. But,
but here in Nebraska, you can use the whole arsenal in 1 year still. I mean, that's just disconcerting. I can tell you that. But
that's maybe one of the reasons that Luke has such a big pack. He has a hard time choosing which rifle to take when he goes, so he takes them all.
Which rifle does get the nod normally? What's the go-to rifle for Luke Meduna?
Oh, man, I've really only got one deer rifle. It's a 257 Weatherby.
And it's hard to beat a 257 Weatherby. That is just like the Beanfield rifle for the Midwest.
Wow. Yeah, well, so I grew up in a house of Weatherbys, and then when I was finally
Your dad was a specialist. Your dad was an absolute specialist. Laser focused.
Some families were Ford families, some Buick. You guys were a Weatherby family.
Yeah, well, and he's got everything else. But so when we were shopping for rifles, I had, we had looked at a whole host of different things, and I had pulled up. I can't remember. We were at the Cabela's in Kearney, I think, and they're like, "Here," Dad's like, "You should look at that one," and I'm like, "Okay," and I held a Weatherby up against my cheek, and I'm like, "Oh man, it's just the way you melt into that gun." And I'm like, it wasn't based on ballistics or anything. Ballistics were probably why my dad handed it to me.
Oh, I'm sure he did his homework
because that was one he didn't have because we bought 2 of them.
See, that's exactly where I'm going with this.
We got a deal because we bought 2 of them.
Dad needs a 257 Weatherby. Son, you're getting a Weatherby.
Yeah. So
that's pretty good. So I'm guessing the holiday presents were along the same lines.
Yeah.
These don't fit, Dad. Well, they fit me just great. Let's go.
Yeah.
Get a new deer stand. Thanks, Dad.
It'll fit someday.
And that's been one of the, and I've, I'll admit I've mostly been an archer a lot of my life, and some of it, like with rifles and all that, with what my dad has had, it's like, why do I need to duplicate what he has? If I need no gun, I'll go borrow it for the season or, whatever. But, so there's that part plays into why I haven't really gone, head deep into the.
Well, he was a homework. The guy did his homework. I know your dad, known him for years. He does his homework, not only on the critter, but I'm sure he wasn't going to let a little thing like the gun let him down when he got out there and connects on a goat or a ram or something. So no question there. What is the greatest big game cartridge of all time, according to Meduna?
Well, we're solving everything. Right. So 257 Weatherby. That's why I bought it.
It's a good one. There's no question there. Oh, very cool.
All right. We're kind of coming to the end of this podcast, folks. Again, I appreciate you listening. Any words of wisdom as folks are getting excited? The weather's cooling down. Some leaves are going to start turning yellow. Walnuts, I think, are. But any words of encouragement for our
just
deer
have
hunters?
fun out there. Spend time in the woods. Chasing your passion, whether it's deer or squirrels or whatever.
There you go. It could be your best season for something this year.
Yeah. Have fun with it. So.
And if not, a day in the woods is better than a day just about anywhere else. So enjoy it. Take it all in.
There you go. Again, folks, we appreciate you listening to the podcast here. Make sure if you give us a thumbs up, a subscribe, whatever you need to do so you know when the next one of these drops. But until next time.
Hunt Nebraska, brought to you by your Nebraska Game and Parks Commission.